Good morning. My name is Rochelle Jefferson. This is my senior project for Tech 4945. The name of my project is Evaluating Cardiometabolic Risk Factors in Nigeria. Nigeria is a place where the yearly income is $700 a year. That means that out of that $700, you have to pay your rent, you have to buy food, you have to put gas in the car, or whatever other bills you have to pay out of that $700 a year. So, God forbid if you end up getting sick and go to the hospital. But if that is the case and you do end up getting sick and going to the hospital, they will treat you there. But this is a place to where if you do not pay your hospital bill once you've been treated or once you've been discharged from the hospital, then they automatically put you in jail for non-payment of medical bills. This is actually a slide of children at medical missions actually getting treated for blood pressures. They wanted to check to make sure the children are okay because, like I said, this is a place to where if your medical bills are not paid once you've been discharged, not 1 or 2 days after, but that same day that you've been discharged, they automatically put you in jail. Now let's look at cardiometabolic disease. Cardiometabolic disease, or CMD, is a complex cluster of risk factors for cardiovascular disease, or CVD, and diabetes. This is a devastating disease that causes death in millions of Americans. This disease also causes blindness, causes people to end up on dialysis, and even lose limbs. CMD is believed to affect 1 in 5 adults worldwide. So this basically means that 1 in 5 adults all over the world will be diagnosed with cardiometabolic disease. The goal of this project is to create a tool that will identify individuals who are at risk for cardiometabolic disease in Nigeria. You may ask me, why did you pick Nigeria? Why not Australia? Why not the US? We could use this in the US. Well, like I said earlier, Nigeria is a place to where if you do not pay your medical bills once you're discharged, they automatically put you in jail. And a country that only makes $700 a year, you can see why being put in jail would be devastating for a family that is relying on the possible person that was sick to pay all the bills. So therefore, this study is really geared towards them to help them stay out of jail and to help them be able to stay at home with their family and provide that income that is so desperately needed. This actually is showing the timeline for my project. This is a basic Gantt chart for this project. This project actually started in May of 2019 and it ended in April of 2020. So it took about a year, maybe close to a year to complete the project. But from start to finish, this was the basic timeline for the project. The setup for this project was that we took data from Nigeria that was from the year of August 2017, August 2018, and August 2019. This data was then put into Microsoft Access, which we will talk a little more about later. I also used for this project Excel to actually run the correlations for this group set. This is how the original data came in for 2017. This is actually what I seen when the data was given to me. This particular data set for 2017 had 389 people in it. This is basically that same data set being broke down by gender. It was broke down by gender because I wanted to see if gender played a part in cardiometabolic disease. This is also the same data being broken down by age. So once I broke it down by gender, I went back and broke down that same data by age. And this is also to see if age played a factor with cardiometabolic disease. This is the data after it had been broken down by gender and age. As you can clearly see in the age group, None of these people are over the age of 20. And this is, like I said, for the female group. I also have data sets broken down as well for the female group that was over the age of 20. Because, like I said earlier, I wanted to see if age played a factor. And if it did, let's see if the everybody under 20, which are the teenagers and the basic children, let's see if they have risk factors for CMD just as well as the adults. This is the information being broke down as far as gender dealing with the male population. I did the same thing I did for the females. I broke it down first by gender and then again by age. There was a group for men that were under the age of 20, and there was a group for the men that were over the age of 20. Right here shows the data being conditioned. And what I mean by being conditioned, where I had to put this data in a format to where the Microsoft Excel correlation software could actually read the data and run correlations. For example, I couldn't just put in, their chief complaint was a fever and headache and then have Excel run it. Excel doesn't work that way. It works by numbers when it comes to running correlations. So basically, this data had to be conditioned. So if you look at chief complaints in the first line, it says fever and headache. If you look over in that same line, you see there's a 1 up under headache and there's a 1 up under fever. The ones mean, yes, this person complained of having a headache and fever at this time. In that same line, you see a 0 under cough and you see AB pain, which means abdominal pain. This person said no, which is a 0. They also said no to urinary problems and vomiting. So if they said no to any of these other symptoms, then a 0 was applied to that symptom for that particular person. This is how the data looked once it was correlated and ran. As you can see, I have a column, for age. I have another column for temp, cough, abdominal pain, headache, fever, urinary problems, and vomiting. What we're doing here is actually trying to see, is there a correlation? Is there a relationship between age and temp? Is there a relationship between temp and cough, and so on and so on? So this is what the data actually looked like once it was conditioned and it was actually ready to go and be ran for correlations. There were some problems that I came across during this study, and we're going to talk about those problems now. The first problem I had was with unknown data. As the data was coming into Nigeria, some of the information that I needed was missing. For example, if you look up under the age column, you'll see unknown, the very first one. That means that I didn't have anything in this data set for this particular person saying what their age was. I knew the gender, so I knew that this person was a male, and as far as address and state, those were taken out to apply with HIPAA guidelines because we didn't want any identifying information in here. So in order to comply with HIPAA, we had to take addresses out, we had to take states out, and in some instances, names had to also be taken out so you wouldn't be able to identify this person as, okay, yes, this person went to this particular medical missions on this year and this is what they complained of. That would be a total HIPAA violation. And so we wanted to obey all HIPAA laws. So that's why up under address and state, for all of these people, for the most part, you will see them taken out. There are a couple of instances where I left state in, and that's just because maybe if later on we need to see where the most instances of cardiometabolic disease was, then we can go back and see, okay, they were in this state, that state. And then if that is the case, this data is also number coded with the original data, so I can easily go back and compare the two and be like, okay, this person came from this state, this person came from this state. But for this study right now, for the most part, address and state were taken out. And then up under that same line where we're looking at the unknown, up under age unknown, we're looking at that line right there. If you look at chief complaints, you see fever and cough. So this person actually came in and said they had a fever and cough. If you go down the age column to 16 years of age, you see that I had an age. I knew this person was 16, but as far as gender, I had no idea because they didn't include that in the data. I don't know why they didn't include it. Maybe it wasn't disclosed at the time. Maybe it was hard for them to see if this person was male or female for whatever reason. That particular information was not available for me to have. Address and state, as you can see, were taken out, but I also had an unknown for chief complaint. This is where they didn't, either the person was just didn't say what they were there for, or they didn't ask the person and just put unknown. But which, however the case may be, the chief complaint for that person that is 16 is unknown. So I can't make up data that I don't have. So therefore, I had to basically say that this was unknown. Another problem that I came up against was taking the data from Microsoft Access to Microsoft Excel. It was very time consuming, very tedious, and very difficult and frustrating for me. Because basically, I thought I could take the data from Microsoft Access, copy and paste it over into Excel, and then it would be okay. But that ended up not being the case. I had to literally sit down, look at each year, look at row, each row of data, transcribe it from Microsoft Access to Microsoft Excel in order to get it in a formation where I could condition it, run correlations on it, see the information better and more accurately. Language barriers. With some instances, there was a huge language barrier when it comes to chief complaints, temperatures, all that. Because you have to remember, in the US, some words have a meaning to us over here, but in Nigeria, it could be the same word but have a totally different meaning. So in some instances, I had to call or text a friend of mine by the name of Esther Usosike in Nigeria and be like, okay, Esther, what does this mean? Does it have the same meaning that in the US that it has over there in Nigeria? Like for abdominal pain. When I think of abdominal pain, I think of cramping, hurting, aching. Do you guys think of that the same way in Nigeria, or does it mean something totally different? Incomplete data. Even though I didn't have enough data to run good correlations on some data sets, I still ran correlations. I wanted to see if there was some information I possibly could have pulled out of this group. But as you can see, if you go to age and abdominal pain, it has a hashtag divided slash zero. That means that it was just not enough information to run a good correlation on it, because you can't divide zero by zero basically. And if you go down to vomiting, you see the same hashtag divide um, line zero. I mean, basically, like I said once before, it just wasn't enough information to run good correlations on the unknown group. So eventually I just had to throw that group out because the data wasn't good. It was too many holes in the data, too many missing information to where you could get good solid correlation numbers. This was the correlation that was ran on the females that were up under the age of 20. As you can see, age and headache had a correlation of 0.36. So that basically means that there is a link, there is a relationship between age, headache, and cardiometabolic disease. Now, this is not saying because they're up under the age of 20 and they have a headache, they automatically have CMD. That is not what this is saying. This is basically saying that there may be a link. So we need to take this and investigate this a little further to see if this truly is a link, if they truly are at risk for having cardiometabolic disease. The same thing with cough and fever. If you look at cough and look at fever, it's 0.31. Same instance. Cough and fever have a relationship with each other. So therefore, since they have a relationship, they also have a relationship with cardiometabolic disease. So is this truly a risk factor? If this are these two symptoms something that we need to look into further to see if a person automatically say, yes, I have a fever, yes, I have a cough, is it an automatic risk or is it an automatic diagnosis for cardiometabolic disease? Overall, this project provided a way to identify people with increased probability for poor quality of life, even death due to this disease process. Like I said earlier, it's not a definite yes, you have cardiometabolic disease, or no, you don't have cardiometabolic disease. It's a tool to see if we can identify the people who are mostly at risk for having this, possibly getting them more education, possibly treating some of the symptoms that we do have. Because, like I said earlier, you have to remember this is a country that only makes $700 a year. And if you go to the doctor and you've been discharged and your medical bill is, let's say, $1,000, you can't pay that. There's no possible way you can pay that making $700 a year. So these people, like I said earlier, are automatically jailed for non-payment of medical bills. So this project is a way to identify them before they get sick, before they have to seek out hospitalization or hospital care, to get these people some help so we can keep them at home and out of the hospitals, which will keep them out of the jail system. Overall, this project was a complete success. All the timelines that were made for this project were met, and there were trends identified for CMD in Nigeria. So, in conclusion, overall, this was a very enlightening and interesting study for me. I would like to see if we can do something like this in the United States, but as of right now, that's just really a too big of a scale for me to handle right now. Not saying that we won't take this to the United States later. Hopefully, when COVID and all these other restrictions have been lifted, we can take this to Nigeria in 2021, add some more data sets, some more information, see some more correlations, and get some more information on, if this is really truly risk factors for cardiometabolic disease, or if it's not, and maybe we need to look somewhere else. So that is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all for spending your time with me. I want to also thank Professor Cohn for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank Dr. Tamara Ote for letting me use her data from the past 3 years for this study. Goodbye.